I tried to stay off of social media to a large extent over the weekend, but I did notice numbers going up in relation to the pandemic that we're in. Trump, too, noticed some of these numbers, and he decided to tweet about them, which is very responsible of him. Unfortunately, we were paying attention to different numbers. He said, quote, President Trump is a ratings hit. Since reviving the daily White House briefing, Mr. Trump and his coronavirus updates have attracted an average audience of 8.5 million on cable news, roughly the viewership of the season finale of The Bachelor. Numbers are continuing to rise. And he goes on to say, because the ratings, which he puts in quotation marks when he was the one just tweeting about ratings, of my news conferences is so high, Bachelor finale, Monday Night Football type numbers. According to the New York Times, the lamestream media is going crazy. Quote, Trump is reaching too many people. We must stop him, said one lunatic. Now understand, Trump is the guy who says that he hates when the fake news media uses anonymous sources. But I trust that someone definitely said Trump is reaching too many people. We must stop him. So those are the numbers he's worried about. I get that someone might write that article, but he tweeted multiple times this weekend about how good the ratings are of his disaster response press conferences.
Yeah. His pandemic is going really well. I mean, this is the equivalent of like
Gangbusters.
me. Yeah, it's the equivalent of me lighting myself on fire on Instagram Live and being like, I had so many live viewers. I got, the house is on fire, but oh my God, look, like so many new followers.
Yeah. And this is, I don't know. You would think that like people, we've lost thousands now, and we'll get into the numbers. That at some point, perhaps the self-congratulating, the focus on optics, and the pretending that this is Survivor or something, would stop. But no, that's who he is. And the thing that makes it really frustrating is that people are watching this, and 60% of the country thinks that his coronavirus response is going really well, that he's doing a good job. He's focused on the right things. He's serious. He's curious. He's deferring to experts on ratings, perhaps, but maybe that's something.
Do you know if Fox News is airing full press conferences from Donald Trump? Because I have a hard time believing that anyone who could sit through an entire press conference would come away thinking that he was doing a good job. Versus if you're hearing it through, a commentator saying that, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I haven't been watching over the past few days any of the mainstream news channels. I know that some, like MSNBC and CNN, had like pulled away some of it, but I believe that they were still airing significant portions. And usually the part that they're keeping is the stuff with him. Right. I would assume that Fox is. But if you're not watching Fox, you might get good coverage of him from a different source. So let's turn now to this video. Take a look at this question that an OAN reporter asked Donald Trump.
Jen Pellegrino with OAN.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, your approval ratings have been the highest they've ever been, as well as the ratings on your handling of the virus. Yet there are some networks that are saying they're debating whether or not to carry these briefings live. Do you think there's a link between the two?
Well, I don't know. I know that, well, that's a nice question. Thank you very much.
So she stood up and said, your ratings are great, people love you, and yet they're not going to be covering, your press conferences anymore. Do you think that there's a link there, pretending, of course, that she doesn't understand the very clearly articulated concerns about misinformation being spread, that literally everyone who has talked about not carrying those anymore has been very clear about that being the reason? And he was so taken aback by how deferential and bootlicking a question it was that he started to answer, and then he stopped and said, wow, what a nice question.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I don't even follow what she said. Like, this is such a good press conference, and yet people don't want to cover it. Is then the implicit takeaway that is it 'cause you're too amazing, and you're gonna give their advertisers too much revenue? Like, what is the logical conclusion of that? Just total, butt licking. Can I say butt? I
think so. I think that's acceptable. Cartoons say it.
Cartoons do say it.
Yeah. Look, and that's the type of question that he wants. I mean, even Fox generally, Sean Hannity will give him questions that lacking in substance. But yeah, he loved that. And no, they pretend that they can't understand that he's spreading misinformation, perhaps because they believe it, perhaps because they want to believe it, or they think that it's convenient, because at the end of the day, he obviously is more worried about his approval rating, his chance of re-election. And we're supposed to say that, well, Fox wouldn't feel the same way. OAN wouldn't. They wouldn't feel the same way. I mean, sure, they're conservatives, but they care about American lives. If he's not doing a good job, they're going to call him out on it. Why would we think that at this point? We're like 4 years into this thing. The idea that they still care about what's actually going on, I think that that's absolutely insane. Fox personalities fell in line so quickly on the, hey, if we have to restart by Easter, that's what's good for the economy thing. I mean, how many people were raising serious concerns to that? A plan that almost certainly would have resulted in far more people dying. Now, thankfully for now, that appears, perhaps because of the massive amount of pushback against it, that has been itself pushed back. He's now looking to extend the lockdown until the end of the month. But let's bear in mind, it's not like he was obligating states or even advising states to do it up until now. He wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't really even clear what the Easter date was going to represent because he hasn't done anything. What was he going to be rolling back? So now we're extending it until April. What? Your lack of concern over states actually... Maryland just did their stay-at-home today.
Yeah. The ordinance that you didn't issue? Mm-hmm. Cool. The off-the-cuff remark that you made and then walk back, and which contradicted other things that you've said, like, what are we supposed to believe? And this is the thing with this president is, like, I agree that, like, there's been way too much focus, especially from the mainstream media in the last 4 years, only on this president and not on actual issues. And that's part of the reason I love TYT, I love the damage report, whatevs. But, like, this is our, like, solar eclipse of a moment. Like, we have to look at it, but we can't look at it. Does that make sense? It's going to burn our corneas, but we have to watch this president, like, because it's the effing president, and we are in an unprecedented international pandemic that is rapidly killing Americans, and we don't know what we're doing. And it's like, and this is what I think, I do feel like if something right comes out of his mouth, I do think we should pay attention to that, and I think we should support that. I mean, it is a very dangerous situation because he is a 3-year-old. He is a child. So what if the child has, like, whatever, like, finger on the trigger and is like, what do I do with this? And you're just like, okay, well, maybe putting it down is good. And then the kid's like, yeah, let's put it down. And you're like, yeah, but you can't get mad, right? It's like, it's an awful situation to be in. That is where we're at.
Yeah, and ironically, your analogy that we have to look directly at the eclipse, that's something that he himself has done, of course.
Exactly.
So it does fit.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.